Hello fellow TubeTubers, it's Miss R here and we're going to be going through language paper 2 again. The topic this lesson is going to be surgery. So let's get started. We're going to be looking at a small sort of mini mock in this lesson, so it's a bit more accessible. It's not as draining as the other one that I've put up. So, source 1. Leonid, a Soviet general practitioner who took part in an Antarctic expedition in 1960 to 1961, he developed appendicitis, which meant he had to perform an appendectomy on himself. So, the night before operating, I did not sleep at all last night. It hurts like the devil. A snowstorm whipping through my soul, wailing like 100 jackals. Still no obvious symptoms that perforation is imminent, but an oppressive feeling of foreboding hangs over me. This is it. I have to think through the only possible way out, to operate on myself. It's almost impossible, but I can't just fold my arms and give up. The night after operating. I worked without gloves. It was hard to see. The mirror helps, but it also hinders. After all, it's showing things backwards. I work mainly by touch. The bleeding is quite heavy, but I take my time. I try to work surely. Opening the petroneum, I injured the blind gut and had to sew it up. Suddenly it flashed through my mind. There are more injuries here, and I didn't notice them. I grow weaker and weaker. My head starts to spin. Every 4 to 5 minutes, I rest for 20 to 25 seconds. Finally, here it is, the cursed appendage. With horror, I notice the dark stain at its base. That means just a day longer, and it would have burst and... At the worst moment of removing the appendix, I flagged. My heart seized up and noticeably slowed. My hands felt like rubber. Well, I thought, it's going to end badly, and all that was left was removing the appendix. And then I realised that, basically, I was already saved. So, you can reread the extract again if you like, but what I would like you to do is look at the 10 words: expedition, appendicitis, jackal, perforation, imminent, oppressive, foreboding, hinder, petroneum and seize, and define those words. I'm not going to actually provide the definitions for you after this because they're pretty straightforward and you just need to keep them and add them to your word bank as well. Spend no more than 5 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, source 2. Fanny Burney describing the surgery to treat her breast cancer in 1811. Victorian surgery was performed without anaesthetic. The doctor has just placed a veil over her face in order to hide the surgery from view. So the veil was transparent, however, and I saw through it that the bedstead was instantly surrounded by the 7 men and my nurse. I refused to be held, but when, bright through the cambric, I saw the glitter of polished steel, I closed my eyes. I would not trust to convulsive fear the sight of the terrible incision. A silence, the most profound, ensued, which lasted for some minutes, during which I imagined they took their orders by signs and made their examination. Oh, what a horrible suspension! I did not breathe, and M. Dubois tried vainly to find any pulse. This pause at length was broken by Dr. Larry, who, in a voice of solemn melancholy, said, "Que me tirendra cecien?" Who will hold this breast for me? Yet, when the dreadful steel was plunged into the breast, cutting through veins, arteries, flesh, nerves, I needed no injunctions not to restrain my cries. I began a scream that lasted unintermittingly during the whole time of the incision, and I almost marvelled that it rings not in my ears still. So excruciating was the agony. When the wound was made and the instrument was withdrawn, the pain seemed undiminished. for the air that suddenly rushed into those delicate parts felt like a mass of minute but sharp and forked poniards that were tearing the edges of the wound. But when again I felt the instrument describing a curve cutting against the grain, if I may so say, while the flesh resisted in a manner so forcible as to oppose and tire the hand of the operator, who was forced to change from the right to the left, then indeed I thought I must have expired. So take your time to read that again if you need to, and I'd like you to define the following words: anaesthetic, cambric, convulsive, incision, vainly, solemn, melancholy, injunction, unintermittingly, and undiminished. Spend about 5 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, so we're going to start with question 1. It says shade the 4 statements below that are true. I'd like you to pause the video, read through the statements, maybe read through the extract again if you need to, and select the letters that coincide with the correct statements. Spend no more than 5 minutes selecting these. Pause the video now. Okay, so you should have got the following correct. C, the surgeon felt worried about operating upon himself. D, the mirror was both useful and problematic. E, during the operation the surgeon made mistakes. G, at the point of taking out his appendix the surgeon felt like giving up. Check your answers, and if you have any incorrect, please correct them now. So the question is, the experiences of the surgery that the 2 patients go through are different. Write a summary of the 2 experiences of anticipating the surgery. What I'd like you to do is pause the video right now and see if you can identify any quotes that explain or explore their experiences of anticipating the surgery. Spend about 5 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, so what I've got here is a list of 3 differences, and I'd like you to identify some more if you can, 1 to 2 more. So the differences is that source 1, he's a surgeon and performs his own surgery. Source 2, she is the patient and has the operation performed on her. So then source 1, he cannot see clearly because of the mirrors. In source 2, she cannot see clearly because of the veil or closing her eyes. So that's a difference there. And the next one is source 1, he makes many mistakes, and in source 2 there are no mistakes made. So I've filled out the first row for you. So I've said the fact that he performs his own surgery and she's the patient. In source A, my quote to support that he performs his own is when it says, I can't just fold my arms and give up. And source B, the bedstead was instantly surrounded by the 7 men and my nurse. So in this question, you also have to make an inference. And the inference that I've made is that source A shows that the writer was determined to save his own life by taking matters into his own hands. He saw it as his only option, whereas in source B, the writer put all her trust into the professionals around her and put her life in their hands. So I'd like you to see if you can fill out this table looking at the other 2 differences and potentially see if you can identify 1 or 2 additional differences about their experiences and fill that in. I want you to spend no more than 10 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, so now, just like the last few lessons, we're going to be writing up our response using the table. So in your question 2, language paper 2, you want to make sure you've identified a quote from both sources and explained how it links to the question, and also summarize what both sources tell you about the topic and make an inference. So don't forget the question was to write a summary of the 2 experiences of anticipating the surgery. So here's my example. Both articles explore the feelings and experiences of the writers prior to their surgery. In regards to the differences, we find that in source A, he is a surgeon and performs his own surgery. This is evident when he states, I can't just fold my arms and give up. However, in source B, she is the patient and has the operation performed on her. This is evident when she describes the bedstead was instantly surrounded by the 7 men and my nurse. Source A shows that the writer was determined to save his own life by taking matters into his own hands. He saw it as his only option, whereas in source B, the writer put all her trust into the professionals around her and put her life in their hands. So I'd like you to write me at least 3 paragraphs. Spend no more than 15 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, now let's have a look at question 3. So question 3 says, in this part of source 1, how does the writer use language to describe his pain? Now obviously this is a very small extract, so it's a small part of the extract that you're actually analysing, but I think this is great practice, because what it does is it allows you to try and say a lot about a little. Now in this small part, lines 1 to 5, I would like you to see if you can identify the following devices: simile, metaphor, verb, hyperbole and symbolism. Pause the video now and see if you can identify quotes that link to each technique. Spend no more than 5 minutes on this task. Okay, so here is what I found. Now for simile, I found it hurts like the devil, but there's also like 100 jackals as well. So there's 2 examples of simile. Metaphor is a snowstorm. Verb, I've looked at whipping. Hyperbole, I've looked more so at the 100 part, but the phrase 100 jackals. And I've also found that 100 jackals could be symbolism as well, jackals in particular. So I'm going to explain myself. These are the quotes that I've used, but please feel free to use your own. When it comes to question 3, you want to have your quote, you want to identify the technique, and you want to analyse it in detail, more detail than what you do in your than what I've done here, and you want to think about the effect on the reader and whatnot. So my example is where it says 100 jackals, and I wanted to give you this example because I've said it's hyperbole and symbolism. So in terms of the hyperbole, I've said the hyperbole is used to depict the extreme excruciating pain that the writer felt in this moment. Jackals are symbolic of hell, which is a continued motif of hell, because it's referred, like hell and the devil is referred to earlier in the extract, as if his pain is so bad that it is somehow designed by an evil power. Now what I'd like you to do is analyse the simile, metaphor and verb and any other examples that you found yourself. Spend no more than 10 minutes on that and see if you can develop your analysis more so than I've done in this example here. Spend no more than 10 minutes on this. Pause the video now. Okay, so now we're going to write up question 3. I'm going to read to you my example. Firstly, the writer uses hyperbolic language when he says 100 jackals. This hyperbole is used to depict the extreme, excruciating pain that the writer felt in this moment. The number 100 is used to emphasise the high level of pain experienced to allow the reader to sympathise with him. Additionally, the plural noun jackals is used tactfully as the animals are symbolic of hell. This use of continued motif of hell, due to the devil being referenced at the beginning of the extract, reveals that the pain that he feels is perhaps so bad that it is somehow designed by an evil power. So in there I've included a quote, fewer than 3 words. I've zoomed in on one word. I've identified a technique. I've used the words such as suggest or implies. I've used reveal in this case. I've looked at the effect on the reader and I've linked the quote to the overall ideas or meanings of the text. So now you're going to attempt to write at least 3 paragraphs using the table that you filled out as, before. Spend no more than 20 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, so now we're on to the final question of section A. So we're on to question 4. So it says, for this question you should refer to both source A and source B. Compare how the writers convey their different perspectives on their experience of the surgery. In your answer, you could compare their different perspectives on the surgery, compare the methods the writers use to convey the different perspectives, and support your response with references to both the texts. So what I want you to do is find some quotes that link to this question. Maybe look at the writer's opinion of the topic, the formality, the tone and the mood, and any other quotes that really looks at the writer's perspectives on their experience of the surgery. Spend no more than 5 minutes finding 4 quotes for source 1. Pause the video now. Please do exactly the same for source 2. Find 4 quotes that link directly to the question. Spend no more than 5 minutes. Pause the video now. Okay, so just like the last language paper 2 that we did, we've got the same table here. So we've got a view, quote and analysis for source A and source B, and then you have to identify whether the views are different or similar in both of the sources. And you have to put that all together into a response after. So I have filled out 1 full row, and then I've filled out a bit of the second row. I've given you a quote for the 3rd row, and I would like you to fill out a complete one for the 4th row on your own. So for the first row, I've said source 1 focuses on the skill involved in the operation. My quotes are, it was hard to see and I work mainly by touch. Method and analysis, he values his skills as a surgeon and although in pain, used precision to carry out the surgery. In source B, the writer's views, the source explores the gore of the operation. The quotes are, dreadful steel and veins, arteries, flesh. The list emphasises the process of the cut and consequently the pain she would have felt. And the views are different because obviously source A is focusing on how he's actually mastering this surgery, whereas source B, she's focusing on the impact it has on how she feels and the pain that she's experiencing. The second one, I've given you the view, surgeon feels in control as he is the one operating, and the quote I've used is 1 day longer, but you might want to choose your own quote. Then you need to fill out the method and analysis. Source B, I've said that she's quite ignorant to surgery, and the quote I've got is, I almost marvel, it rings not in my ears still. I want you to analyse that, and obviously those views are quite different. And then see if you can find a view and an analysis for I rest every 4 to 5 minutes and like a mass of minute poniards. Okay, so I'd like you to fill out that table, spend no more than 10 minutes on this. Pause the video now. Okay, so here is my response. The extracts explore a different focus in regards to the surgery. Firstly, source 1 focuses on the skill involved in the operation. This is evident when the writer mentions it was hard to see and I work mainly by touch. This suggests that he values his skill as a surgeon and although in pain, used precision to carry out the surgery. The sensory language used, see and touch, shows how important his senses are at this point in time. Alternatively, source 2 explores the gore of the operation. This is evident when it says dreadful steel and veins, arteries, flesh. The descriptive list emphasises the process of the cut and consequently the pain she would have felt. The reader is able to empathise with her and understand how unpleasant this experience was. So what I'd like you to do is put all your notes that you made in your table into a response. I want you to write at least 3 paragraphs and I want you to spend no more than 25 minutes on this question. Pause the video now and have a go. If you do finish, see what part of the success criteria you have met. Okay, so now we're on to question 5, the final question of the paper, section B. So just to remind you, just like I did the last time, it's still applicable that you use different sentence starters, a range of punctuation, figurative language, different senses and different sentence types as well. Very important, just like you do in language paper 1. And also, like I said in the last paper 2 lesson, here are some persuasive techniques that you might want to include in your paper 2 question 5. It's looking at the DeForest acronym, and I've got the technique, definition, examples and the effects on the reader there. And feel free to pause the video and write some notes in case you need to. So just to remind you, you will either be asked to write to explain, instruct or advise, argue or persuade. in the form of a letter or an article or a speech or an essay or a leaflet. In this case, this lesson I'd like you to practice writing a speech. So, just to remind you, when it comes to speech, at the minimum, you should include a simple address to an audience, sections, a final address to an audience. So make sure you're talking to the audience, bring them into the conversation. And for more developed responses, you could include a clear address to an audience, fluent linked paragraphs and sequences, rhetorical indicators that an audience is being addressed throughout. So don't just do it at the beginning and end, do it throughout. A clear sign off, for example, thank you for listening. So your task is, it says all sports should be fun, fair and open to everyone. These days, sport seems to be more about money, corruption and winning at any cost. Write a speech in which you explain your point of view. So I've got the persuasive techniques you might want to include, and I've got the sentence starters, sentence length, sentence types, punctuation, types of figurative language you might want to include as well. I would like you to pause the video and spend 45 minutes writing this speech. Pause the video now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 4 examples of a response to this question. These are a range of different levels. So it goes from sort of a low level response to a higher level response. And what I want you to do is see where you would put your answer and what kind of answer you think that yours looks like. So the first one is this top box here. So it says, in my opinion, sport should be there for whoever wants to take part so we can all have fun. Nowadays, sport has no fun in it. It is about money, money, money. Sport should be fun like the olden days. So that's probably one of like the lower level responses that you can get. Don't forget, this is a 40-mark question. So it'll probably give you like a level 1. The next one is probably like an upper level 2. Sexist, racist, ageist. There are reasons why people are held back from sport. Football is for boys and netball is for girls. What if a boy wants to play netball or a girl wants to play football? Stereotyping happens all the time, but you can do something about it. As a student myself, I see many sports clubs discriminating against people. It happens everywhere all the time. It happens in schools, sports clubs, in the playground, everywhere. But I can't think of a reason why it should. Can you? The teachers say it is too violent for girls. But if that is true, why is it not too violent for the boys? There is not a difference. Personally, I think we should all work together and make it better for all our lives. So that's like a level 2 response. It's not bad. There's a few spelling mistakes and it doesn't explain the topic in too much detail. Here's more like a level 3-4 response. Winning in sport is everything in sport. Who could disagree with this statement? Who would take part if there wasn't a winner? No one. For some people, sports have become too corrupted, too political and too fake. Money has become more important than the sport itself, and consequently cheating has become more common. Players have started to use performance-enhancing drugs and try to find ways to improve their performance that aren't ethical. Is that bad? Maybe it's better to be the best athlete you can be. There isn't a sport left that isn't affected by money and the cult of cheating. The world revolves around money, and that isn't going to change. This isn't just exclusive to sports. Drama and theatre is corrupt. So is music industry. So is politics. Winning is everything, full stop. Not just with sport. That's quite a good response, to be honest with you. So if you're writing around this level, it's not bad. There's just more things that you can use to develop your explanations and more techniques you could use to make it more persuasive as well. The final one. Gold medal for cheating and corruption. Fun, fair and open to everyone. Open to the rich, open to the poor. Fair for men, fair for women. Fun for each and every participator. Because how else can we increase the number of people doing sport if we don't make it fun for all who take part? It's 2020. The Olympic Games will take place in Tokyo. You will turn on your television to see parades of athletes, the finest in the world, all excellent examples of health, stamina and training. You will then open the paper and read about the corruption, the drug cheats, the match fixing, the data forgeries. And why? Because we put so much money into sport and focus on results, not participation. The more we pay our athletes, the more we raise the stakes of competition and the more chance there is that people cheat. Instead, we need a system where the money paid out is reasonable, and there needs to be a parity between sports. We are stuck in a damaging cycle where football is the most watched sport because it is on the television the most, and it is on the television the most because it is the most watched sport. The conversation needs to change, attitudes need to change, perceptions need to change. If we want to get rid of cheaters, and if we want to punish drug dopers, and if we want to deter others from doing it, then we ban them for life. No 6-month ban, no fine, no slap on the wrist. Take their medals away and never give them back. It is 2020 and the Olympic Games will take place in Tokyo. You will turn on your television to see parades of athletes and you will know they all deserve to be there. So, as you can see, there's a lot of things included there. Repetition. There are rhetorical questions, statistics, facts, opinions. It's really good to see how this person has used a range of devices, persuasive, figurative devices, sentence types, punctuation to really enhance their response. So what I want you to do is think about your response and how close it comes to this high level response, and maybe see if you can edit your response and make it better using inspiration from this example. But thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you watched the whole of it, guys. I've really appreciated you just watching it. If you have any comments to make, please leave them in the comments below, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.